The last time I spoke to my mom, she was sitting in her old armchair stitching a quilt, and when I asked who it was for, she smiled and said, "Someone who needs to feel loved." I didn't know she was sewing pieces of herself into something I'd hold when she was gone. The last real conversation I ever had with my mom happened on a cold November morning in Clarksdale, Mississippi. She was sitting in her usual armchair, the one by the front window that creaked when you sat in it, the one no one else ever touched. She was stitching a quilt. That wasn't unusual. Mom had been quilting since I was a kid. It was her way of dealing with stress, I think. Quiet hands, busy mind. She had a basket full of old fabric pieces next to her, bits of clothes I recognized. My dad's faded work shirt, some old curtain from the guest room, even the hem of a yellow dress she used to wear when she gardened. She was using everything. Her hands moved slow, steady, like she wasn't in any hurry to finish. I was standing near the kitchen, drinking coffee, watching her from across the room. The sun hit her just right. She looked small in that chair. Smaller than I remembered. Like she was disappearing one stitch at a time. "Who's the quilt for?" I asked. She looked up at me, and for a second I thought she didn't hear. Then she smiled, not wide, just that tight little smile she gave when she knew something I didn't. "Someone who needs to feel loved," she said. That was it. That's all she said. Then she went back to stitching. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Massive stroke. I got the call around midnight from the hospital. They told me she was unconscious when she came in. Never woke up. I sat in the hospital hallway with my hands shaking and that phrase running through my head. Someone who needs to feel loved. She must have known. Somehow, she must have felt it coming. After the funeral, simple, quiet, just like she would have wanted, I stayed in her house for a while to sort her things. I slept on the couch. Couldn't bring myself to sleep in her bed. I didn't touch the armchair. It still had the quilt draped over the back, like she had just stepped away for a moment. One night, I had trouble sleeping. I kept hearing things, creaks, wind, maybe just the old house settling. I got up and went to the quilt. I wanted to feel close to her, I think. I pulled it around me and sat in her chair. That's when I felt something odd. Something stitched into the edge of the quilt, thicker than fabric. I thought maybe it was a mistake, some folded over seam, but when I looked closer, I saw it was a piece of paper. Sewn in tight, almost hidden. I got a seam ripper from her sewing box and carefully opened the edge. It was a letter. Yellowed a little. Folded small. My name was written on the front in her handwriting. My full name. Not sweetheart or baby or anything soft, just my name. That alone told me this wasn't just another sentimental note. I read it once. Then again. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She told me things I never knew. Things I never wanted to know. Things that changed how I saw her and my whole damn family. She knew she was sick. Knew the stroke was likely. She wrote the letter a few weeks before, probably right around the time I asked her who the quilt was for. But the most important part wasn't the goodbye. It was a name. And the words, "If anything happens to me, talk to this man. He'll tell you the rest." I didn't recognize the name. But what she wrote next made my blood run cold. "He's your real father." The name in the letter was Howard McCrae. No address. No phone number. Just that name, scribbled in the same hand that used to write my birthday cards. I stared at it for a long time. I was 38. I'd grown up believing that Martin Bell was my father. The man who raised me. The man who taught me how to drive and grounded me for sneaking out and bought me a six-pack when I turned 21. He died when I was 26, lung cancer. Rough man, never really affectionate, but I always figured he loved me in his own way. He was hard but present. And now I was reading that he wasn't even my father? The next day, I called my older brother, Ray. Same mom, same supposed dad. Or so I thought. He lived a few hours away in Tupelo. "You ever heard the name Howard McCrae?" I asked. Long silence on the line. Then he said, "Why?" I told him about the letter. He let out this bitter laugh. "I can't believe she told you." "Damn." "Wait, you knew?" "I found out after Dad died. Some old box in the garage. DNA results." I kept it to myself. Figured it wasn't worth digging up. DNA results? I asked. My mouth went dry.
Yeah.
He had suspicions. I think he knew for years. But he kept quiet because he loved her. Or maybe because of you. I don't know. But he never brought it up. Just drank more. Yelled more. You remember how bad he got toward the end. I remembered. I always thought it was the cancer.
The pain.
The pills. But now I started to wonder if it was something else eating at him, some secret eating him alive. Ray gave me a little more. He remembered the name Howard McCrae being on a postcard once. Said he thought he saw it in one of Mom's old jewelry boxes, but never followed up. That was just like Ray. Always the type to let sleeping dogs lie. But I couldn't. I spent the next week digging. I found old church records, voter rolls, even checked the city archives. Finally, I found a match. Howard McCrae. Age, 65. Lives in Jackson, Mississippi. It was only a 3-hour drive. I didn't call. I wanted to see him face to face. I needed answers. I needed to see this man's eyes and hear the truth from his mouth. I drove down that Saturday. It rained the whole way. His house was small, white with peeling paint, tucked into a quiet street lined with oak trees. I parked across the street and sat in the car for a long time, just watching the windows. A light was on in the front room. No movement. I finally walked up to the door and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Then I heard the lock click. A tall man with sharp eyes opened the door. His face was weathered, like someone who'd spent too much time in the sun. But his eyes, that's what caught me. They looked just like mine. "Can I help you?" he asked. I hesitated. "I think you knew my mother, Rachel Bell." His face went pale. He stepped back, almost like I'd punched him. "Come in," he said after a second. "Come in right now." His house smelled like dust and fried onions. The furniture was old, like it hadn't been changed since the 90s. He led me into the living room and sat down slowly, like his legs hurt. I stayed standing. "So you're Rachel's boy," he said. I nodded. "She passed 2 weeks ago. Stroke." He looked down at his hands, silent for a moment. I always thought I'd hear when it happened.
Guess not.
"She left me a letter," I said. "Said you were my real father. Told me to come find you." He gave a bitter little laugh. That woman always knew how to drop a bomb. I waited. I wasn't in the mood for slow-rolled memories. I needed the truth. "So, is it true?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's true." I felt something shift in me, like the ground under my feet was cracking open. But I held it in. "Why didn't she ever tell me?" He rubbed his face. "We were young. Stupid. I was married. She didn't want to break up your life. And Martin, he found out. Threatened to take you and Ray and disappear. So she stayed quiet. We all did." I sat down. My legs suddenly felt too heavy. "You mean to tell me this whole time everyone just pretended?" He nodded again.
It was easier that way.
"For everyone but you, I guess." I thought about my childhood. The tension in the house. The way Martin, my not father, would get angry at nothing, then apologize with gifts. The way Mom would stare out the window some nights like she was waiting for something. I looked around Howard's house. No pictures. No sign of family. "You got any kids?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just you." I let that sit. Let it sting. Then I asked, "So why now? Why'd she finally tell me?" He paused. Then he said something I didn't expect. Because she knew someone was watching her. Asking questions. Digging into the past.
What?
"She called me 6 weeks ago. Said she thought someone was following her. Said some old things were coming back up." "What kind of things?" Howard stood up, walked to a drawer, and pulled out an old photo. It was a picture of my mom, Howard, and a man I didn't recognize. They were standing in front of a gas station. Howard tapped the third man in the photo. "That's Roy. He used to work with me and your mom at the feed store. He got into some bad stuff later. Drugs, gambling. Disappeared 20 years ago. But a few months back, someone said he showed up in Memphis asking about your mom.
Why?
I asked. Because Roy knows the truth about what happened back then. And if he's back, it ain't for family reunion. It's for revenge.
I didn't go back to Clarksdale that night.
I stayed in Jackson, in a cheap motel off the highway, tossing and turning under stiff white sheets. I couldn't stop thinking about that man in the photo, Roy. Howard told me more before I left. About how Mom and Roy used to be a thing way back before she married Martin. Said Roy was charming at first, but quick to anger. Controlling. Drank too much. Started stealing from the feed store. Howard caught him once, tried to cover for him, but Roy got fired anyway. That's when the threats started. He said he'd ruin her. Howard told me. Said he'd tell everyone she was sleeping with both of us, that you weren't Martin's kid. He wanted to make her suffer. Then Roy vanished. Everyone assumed he overdosed or skipped town. But now he was back. The next day, I drove home. My mind was spinning. I kept hearing Mom's voice. Someone who needs to feel loved. What the hell did that mean now? When I got back to her house, I checked the quilt again. I turned it over, inch by inch, looking for more. And I found it, another piece of paper, this one hidden deeper, inside one of the corner squares. The stitching was tight. It took me almost an hour to pull it loose without tearing the fabric. It was a journal page. Just a few lines. Roy never left. He came to the house that night. He tried to hurt me. I thought he was going to kill me. Howard came later.
He helped me.
We buried him behind the shed. If anyone finds this, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I sat there shaking. My hands went cold. My mother killed a man, or helped cover it up. And now, after all these years, the past was clawing its way back up from the dirt. I went to the shed that night. I dug. 6 feet down, past roots and rocks, I found the bones.
Old.
Broken. A cracked skull. A rusted belt buckle. It was real. All of it. And I made a mistake. I called Ray. He drove in the next morning. I showed him the journal page. The quilt.
The grave.
Jesus, he whispered. What the hell do we do? I told him we go to the cops. He looked at me like I was insane. You're gonna turn in Mom? After all this? She's dead, I said. It's about closure. We deserve to know the whole story. But Ray shook his head. You do this, you dig her up for the whole town to see. You make her name into gossip. You really want that? We fought. Bad. He stormed out that night. I didn't hear from him for days. The police showed up 5 days later. Anonymous tip. They arrested Howard first. Said he confessed after a few hours. Said he buried Roy after Mom accidentally killed him in a struggle. Said he kept the secret all these years because he loved her. They labeled it a cold case. No charges. No prosecution. But the whole town found out. News vans parked outside her house. I lost friends. Ray stopped speaking to me. And, the worst part, they never found out who tipped them off. But I know. It was Ray. I think he wanted to punish me for bringing it all up. For dragging our mother's memory through the mud. For choosing truth over silence. The quilt sits folded in my closet now. I can't look at it. Not anymore. Because I finally understand what she meant. Someone who needs to feel loved wasn't about comfort. It was a warning. She knew the truth would hurt. That it would burn everything down. And she stitched herself into that quilt because she knew, once I unraveled her past, I'd lose every piece of her I ever thought I understood. Even now, some nights, I swear I can hear her voice. You just had to go looking, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And I'll never be able to stitch it all back together.